Oh, hello there. I'm Mr. Cassell, and welcome to British Poetry Analysis. On today's show, we'll be focusing on one of my favorite poems of the Victorian era. This is, of course, The Darkling Thrush by Thomas Hardy. Now, as we get into the analysis of this poem, we see the first thing we have to look for is setting. Setting is very key, especially in this poem, because setting is what defines the mood or tone for our entire poem. The author takes the first two stanzas to describe the setting of this poem. Now, the first thing we see in setting, which is very obvious for this poem, is it's wintertime. That's right. Right from the opening line and all the way through the entire first two stanzas, our author specifically emphasizes that it is winter in this poem. This is very significant because throughout all of poetry and all of literature, winter represents death or the end, as spring represents the beginning and life. So what we're trying to show, or what he's trying to show here, is the lack of life. This is very apparent in the second line of the entire poem when it says, "When frost was speck gray and winter's drag made desolate." The poem goes on in the following section to include, "His crepit the cloud canopy, the wind death laminate." Now, whenever cloud is mentioned, I don't want you to think of where you keep all your stuff backed up from your iPhone. In literature, a cloud represents gloominess and especially an upcoming storm. So we've seen aspects throughout the first two paragraphs of this majority of this poem, actually, is focused on the setting of this winter. What Harding is really trying to get across is hopelessness here, a feeling of no point. It said in the first paragraph of how nobody's outside. Everyone's gone in and built their fire. So outside right now, as he leans up against this gate, which is figurative, actually, that a gate is representing what is coming. A gate represents taking you to the next place. A lot of people believe that this is his problem coping with coming from the 1800s to the 1900s and all the progression he's seeing. He sees this really as a dark time of the 1800 culture kind of dying off. And then he finishes the beginning of this poem with, "The ancient pulse of German birth were shrunken, hard, and dry, and every spirit on the earth seemed frivolous as I." So once again, he's putting emphasis onto the deadness, the hopelessness. It makes me kind of think about the American Revolution and Valley Hey! Hey, no, not Hoth. Come on. Okay. So focused, especially on that last line, where he's saying that there's no more life outside. There's nothing. So where do we go from here? Is this the end? This is classic Hollywood plot line. To have an emptiness, a void that must be filled. A void that must be filled with a new hope. Yeah, if we could stop alluding to Star Wars, that would be great. We're trying to keep this educational. Okay, where was I? Right, so just when we felt like there is no hope and he's not seeing anything positive, we read the third paragraph of this poem, which starts with, "At once a voice arose among the bleak twigs overhead, in a fullest heart evening song of joy illimited." So we see here now, as the bird or the thrush comes onto the scene, we see elements of hope, and then it concludes the introduction of the thrush with, "Had chosen thus to fling his soul upon the growing gloom." So this is a key part where we're getting into the main part of the poem, which is in the fourth paragraph. It's going to be our author's response, how he responds to this bird. Now, it doesn't give a reason why the bird is singing here, which is one of the greatest mysteries of this poem. Moving on to the fourth part, and actually rather the final two lines of the poem, we read, "That I could think where trembled through his happy good night air some blessed hope, wherefore he knew, and I was unaware." So what he's coming up with in this final part is the bird still has joy. The bird somehow manages to sing, showing that he has joy. And the human is out there like, there's nothing to be joyful about right now. This is a time of death. This is sad. He's crouched up against the gate. He's like, this bird is like, oh, I just got a brand new house in Detroit. He's like, who wants to live in Detroit? As I looked into what the meaning of the poem is, the professionals are actually split about 50-50 on meaning what it is. So the first is that Harding is not tailing this from a first person. He is not the person symbolized. He's saying that society is what is moving and what is dying from the 1800s to the 1900s and going into this time of industrial revolution. And that's what he's afraid of, and that's what he sees as dying, and he doesn't see hope in it. So the bird would then symbolize what art and what he knows could carry on and just be joyful through that. The second one is that it is a personal story of Harding and his own fear of death and physical death, of just being able to not be with nature, but still to have that joy, which he doesn't understand where that joy comes from. Well, I hope this was helpful. Until next time, don't text and drive, don't trust the system, and God bless.